Hello, everybody, and welcome to what I can only describe as a panel of absolute legends. And we're going to be kicking off, I was about to say kicking off 2026 with a good conversation, but we're kind of already a few weeks in. So, over the course of the next 45 minutes, there's going to be some really interesting conversation about what the six of us think 2026 is going to look like from a candidate perspective, what we think our clients and what recruitment clients want to see, as well as most interestingly, like how we think the role of the recruiter has shifted and will continue to shift. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Holly Langley. I'm the founder and CEO of Restack. My background is in recruitment operations, and now we work exclusively with Bullhorn customers to help them optimize all of their tech stack, as well as integrations with companies like these guys. So I'm going to ask everyone to go around and do a little introduction. So Darren from SourceFlow, over to you. Tell us who you are and what SourceFlow does.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. Darren Curtis from SourceFlow. I'm one of the co-owners, and I basically run the revenue team within the organisation. A very small revenue team actually at the moment, but we are growing. We build website and marketing technology for recruitment business, integrate seamlessly into various different ATSs and CMSs to drive not just candidate engagement, but also client engagement, to create leads and create ownership of leads once they actually reach your business. So that's what we do.
Thank you. Gabe, over to you.
Gabe Mendelson. I do partnerships at Woo. Woo, we focus here about helping agencies make the most of their existing network. So a lot of data gets stale, candidate records, client contact records. We focus on constantly updating it and piling on different agents to make sure that they can then reactivate that network.
Interesting. We'll come on to more about that later, about kind of giving our candidates lots of opportunity. And I think data, as we all know, is a big part of that. Ben, fresh from paternity leave, I believe. Welcome back. Congratulations. Please give us a little introduction.
Not so fresh. Ben, so I'm the head of sales here at Sourcewell, and Sourcewell, we're an AI recruitment platform that essentially has a number of products that are AI agents that support the consultant process as they are doing BD or the candidate side of things. Make sure it captures everything in your business, and then gives you recommendations on how you can be improving, and how the consultants can improve as well. It's hopefully going to be a big year or continue to be a big year for us.
I have no doubt it will be. And Rob, over to you.
Rob Earls. I'm the head of sales over at Pager. My background before RecTech was very much recruitment. I started in a two-man recruitment startup that I was with for over 6 years. We grew it to over 35 heads, so hopefully some of the stuff I've got to say will be useful. I'm the ex-head of sales at JobAdder, moved to Pager probably just under 2 years ago. What does Pager do? We help recruiters to do consistent high-value business development, ensuring that they've always got placement pipelines. So that involves delivering live vacancies to them on a daily basis, along with the research to make sure they do well-informed approaches to clients, try and get that business on board. We also provide CV formatting, the ability to spec CVs into candidates, and also personal branding and marketing to make all of that more effective.
Busy. And last but not least, Carl, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Holly. I'm probably the only one here with a proper accent from the UK, being a Macron from up north. I'm the founder of Conquest, the Red Gorilla guys, as we're sometimes referred to as. We have a strapline which is commission accomplished. That's what we deal with. So we're Bullhorn's exclusive marketplace partner for commission management. We're also part of their ventures portfolio, the only UK company to be part of that, which I'm quite proud of. And effectively, we help recruiters to get rid of the madness of spreadsheets with their commission, automate everything, give them confidence in what is their biggest incentive, and make sure all of their people have transparency, understanding, and trust in their money, in their commission. So a very concise niche that we cover. Interesting.
We often, whenever we speak, I always have flashbacks to when it was my responsibility to manage all the commission in my old company, and we had at one point 40 spreadsheets in 2 different currencies. Yeah. It was an absolute nightmare. So, yes, I don't miss those days. I much prefer what I get to do now, which is talk about RecTech and all of that fun stuff. So I have a question for everybody who is watching. How have you found the start to 2026? I think just to give you a bit of perspective from what we've seen across our clients, we've seen it's been a bit crazy. Like we're kind of 4 or 5 weeks in now, and there's a real theme that I see coming through, which is there's just a lot of everything. There's clients who are specking and giving recruiters jobs that aren't real jobs, and they say they're going to have give you 15 openings to this, but actually nothing ever comes of it. But what concerns me the most is just the sheer high volume of candidates that are coming through on applications. So we see so many applications, especially on places like LinkedIn, where one job advert is getting 500, 600 candidates. And the reality of that is 10%, if that, are actually relevant. So that's a couple of trends that we're seeing. And obviously all of the work that these amazing people and their products do kind of all help support both those areas to make sure everything your recruiters are doing are really, really high quality. So we'd love to know in the chat, what kind of, are you seeing those trends and what are you seeing and how has your 2026 started? So Darren, I have a question for you. I'm going to come to you first. You obviously work really closely with candidates, and a lot of your all your website stuff is really focusing on making sure those applications feed through and the candidates have a great experience. So from looking forward for 2026, what do you think candidates expect in 2026?
I mean, it's really difficult because there is such a volume of candidates, as you said, Holly. But the problem is when any applicant goes through an application process, they think they're the only person potentially applying for that job, right? So they expect a service in a way that a client would expect a service. And that's really hard at the moment, but it's really hard, like harder than it's ever been. And so I think they still expect speed, clarity, they expect honesty. They definitely expect some level of callback or some type of engagement post, even if it's just a no thanks but no thanks. It still amazes me the amount of applications that go through into an ATS, and we see this all the time, into an ATS or into a CRM, that aren't necessarily suitable, so they just don't reach out, forgetting whether they're going to be suitable for those candidates in the future. So I think speed of process, both for accepting and rejecting, and that's really tough. And this is where automation actually comes in and it can start to play a bit of a it's a bit of a sort of a silver bullet really in that respect. But the key shift I think really is that candidates expect recruiters to be visible, and I think they expect you to, as a recruiter, to be able to engage with them, and without that they simply just shoot on to the next recruitment business or onto the next application that they're going to make. And some of them you might welcome, many of them you actually want within your business. So for me it's all of those things I've just mentioned.
What's quite interesting is, as you said, there's so many candidates who are just coming through and they want that really good experience, and so many of our clients are terrified to add them all to the ATS or CRM straight away because there's so many of them. And that is really challenging because then they kind of go into this pool on in a talent pool on a job board or what have you, and they don't pull through, and therefore they never hear back from us. I went out for a coffee with one of my friend's daughters at the weekend, and she's a graduate. She's got 2 master's degrees in political science. She's just come back from Iraq as volunteered over there. And I was like, I don't know much about what she's covering, but it was really interesting because she's looking for a job. And I was like, well, here we go. Our 2 worlds have finally collided. And the reality of it is, she said, it takes her 2 to 3 days a week to apply for jobs because the application forms are really lengthy because she's going direct necessarily through a recruiter. And she said, just no one feeds back to me. And she kind of, they have their expectation that in the world of work and the way that AI and everything is coming through, people want that communication piece and they want to hear back. And it's almost like they do want to be treated like a client. I think that was a really interesting comment. So yes, I suspect that the volume may continue to be a thing, and obviously we need to level up the comms that we have, which brings me over to Ben at Sourcewell. Ben, what do you think candidates expect in 2026?
I mean, everything that Darren's just said, I completely agree with. I think the whole getting back to candidates and actually giving them a reason why you're rejecting them or not taking them forward, I think that's been sort of the problem as old as time. I think now, though, we have less excuses for not doing it because we have tools that can record interviews and can write summaries and can almost make a decision for you, at least guide you on a decision, say these are the reasons you don't or do fit the job spec, for example. So but for me, it's it's probably split into the different types of candidate out there. So you have like super high volume recruiting, whereby candidates expect to be able to access everything on their phones. They expect to be able to send their compliance documentation through an app, have everything accredited, and they expect to be invited to, or maybe not expected, but nowadays people are using things like AI interview tools where it can happen within the next hour or the next half an hour, and they know if there's an opportunity or there's some seasonal work going or whatever it is. I was at a roundtable before Christmas and they were nervous about it, but they got an AI interview software, and because they had to hire, I think it was 1,000 seasonal workers in the space of like 30 days or something, and they were like, how are we going to do this? And they rolled this software out. And obviously, if you had an individual person or multiple people, you'd have to have a huge team to interview that many people to make that many selections. The AI interview meant they only had one person managing it, but they actually found that the interviewees preferred it because it was more efficient. It was very fair because everyone got the same questions, and the interviewers found that they got a more consistent process. Because I mean, if you've got 50 interviewers trying to go through all that, like everyone's kind of asking different things. You've got all the bias to manage as well. So with a QA layer, they actually got quite a successful outcome for it. So that's like the ultra high volume. That's less of my experience, but that's what I'm aware of. And then you've probably got more of the high-ish volume sort of contractor work that people are doing interviews with humans, but everything's getting recorded, transcribed. It's helping the recruiter make that assessment, and that's where I think the feedback piece from what Darren mentioned, right? We can now send feedback. Everyone wants to give feedback. No one has time to do it or have the words to put it in a way that is acceptable to a candidate. That's the hardest thing, right? Sometimes you say things and then a candidate will come back to you and you'll be like, well, maybe I shouldn't have said anything in the first place. So like AI is going to really help us to improve that candidate journey. And then you have the people that are the sort of the passive market, if you like, which is they're expecting you to not reach out to them if they are the wrong job. The typical is Java versus C#, right? That's the age-old example. Reaching out as Java, and it's like, no, I'm a C# person, but it has to be personalized, has to be targeted. And I think the last thing is actually, we've talked about this for a little bit, and I don't think many people are doing it yet. It's like seeing your candidate pools as like a high-value opportunity, and certainly giving them a lot of value from it to keep them engaged. And what I mean by that is maybe having like a community manager that would manage that pool of candidates or your pool of candidates, run events, etc., where you can get people together, and ultimately a lot of candidates become hiring managers, vice versa. I think there's a couple of companies, I'm going to name them, that do it very well in the sales space, always all over my feed with events and whatnot. And I think that adds a lot of value, not just for me as someone that might use them, but also for the candidates that are going, because the speakers on those events are like, they're some of the best SaaS companies that people are working at. So yeah, they're sort of the 3-4 things that I would say are probably going to be like very much at the forefront in 2026.
And I think that thing about sort of face-to-face events, going out for meetings, I think is crucial. And we've got a couple of clients who do amazing events, and it does make such a difference. And it really adds value to the work that we do, because we can send out information to candidates via automation that kind of is selling these events. And it's really interesting to see, and it's great that there are so many events for these candidates. And I think definitely something to sort of support your candidate attraction and retention going into 2026. So yeah, love that. And I'm really personally excited to see more about how the AI screening is going to come into play this year. Some of our clients are kind of starting to use it, which is exciting. Some are terrified of it. I've started not calling, I no longer call it AI screening, because I've concluded that some of our clients or people were kind of putting out emails saying, we invite you to an AI screener. And I thought, oh dear, I don't think that's quite the right language. So I'm now kind of calling it application enhancement, because I really want to make sure that the candidates have a good experience and they know why we're doing this, and that there are so many benefits to it. So there we go. So lots of interesting insights about what we think candidates are going to bring or want in 2026. So we're going to move over to the flip side. We're going to look over at the recruiters and our clients. So Rob, obviously you guys have had a massive push on kind of expanding Pager for BD elements. We've had a great webinar with Darren on Monday, who showed us through some of the steps that some of your clients did. So I think bring on 7 meetings in a couple of weeks, which is fantastic, using your processes. Yeah. So like, what do you think clients want from recruiters in 2026?
Well, I think it's a really interesting one, isn't it? Because it's deemed to be a little bit of a tougher market, dare I say it. But equally, I think it can be quite an exciting one in 26 for the recruiters that get it right. And I think if we look at the fact that I think, there's a rough percentage that only 45%, maybe 50% of businesses in the UK alone are actually hiring people, but actually 75% of those companies say that they're actually finding it tough. So therefore, it means that there's very, very much a place for recruiters to support that if they get it right. But that said, I think there have been some shifts in the expectations of clients. And if recruiters are doing what they're meant to be doing, there's going to be a lot of business development. So there's going to be a heck of a lot more approaches going in, right? So they've got to get this right. So look, there are some things that are pretty cliched, I suppose, but are really, really important now, which is obviously your quality over quantity. The shift has to be from just filling seats to providing companies with that high impact talent, to be perfectly honest with you, because along with that, there's also this skills first revolution that's in play right now, and therefore what businesses are looking to do is actually, where they can, is upskill their own talent to fill those gaps. So therefore, as a recruiter, you've got to be looking at, where can I niche down? Where can I micro niche down? And where is the very best talent? Where is the top 1% that's going to actually get me engaged with these clients properly? And alongside that, there's also the cost of mishiring is so much higher now. I mean, along with just obviously, higher salaries, but also with increased employee rights. So a lot of businesses are actually looking at that legal and that regulatory firewall as well. And they're looking for recruiters to become sort of trusted advisors on that, to be able to protect them from that perspective. So look, I think there are so many different things going on, but I think there are so many advantages that the right recruiters can gain to get in with these clients.
I think that's a really interesting perspective. And I'm currently thinking about a whole marketing campaign about the cost of mishiring and how we can all work together to make sure that is lowered by doing really good qualification calls, by screening properly, not screening, application enhancement, I should say, or whatever we're doing to really, and post-placement check-ins. Like I was speaking to a new client yesterday, and part of our process is to understand like what their recruiters do. And I said to them, like, just mind me asking, when a candidate starts, how often do you check in with them? And the recruiter turned around to me and said, oh, I don't. And I said, do you have quite a large number of dropouts? Like, does your commission then get affected if that happens? They were like, yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, like there's such an opportunity here. Like, just because we've done the bit, we've got the 10 grand, $20 fee or whatever, $20,000 fee. There's still so much to do because we need to make sure we retain that and that we keep our client happy and our candidates happy. So yeah, I agree with you entirely, and I think that quality piece is going to be really key as well. Very interesting. Thank you so much, Rob, for your insights. Carl, I'm going to come to you next. We're going to transition onto something else now, the role of the recruiter. So we've covered off kind of what candidates expect. We've covered off what our clients expect from recruiters. Carl, how do you think the role of the recruiter has kind of shifted or is going to shift going into the latter part of this year?
Yeah, well, admin's going to disappear, isn't it? There or thereabouts. There's still going to be some degree of element there, but it's going to be a lot less than what it's been in the past. But I think that with the reduction in that, we're talking about AI here, of course. That's kind of the number one disruptor, isn't it, in everything, not just recruitment. But I think the other thing that comes with the reduction in admin is an increase in data. There's just like more that's available now. So I kind of feel, and when I was listening to everybody else, it was quite interesting. We've been talking about not even anything to do with Conquest, but just more broadly speaking, the importance of trust. The more that tech takes over, the more people are going to be seeking that human side of trust. And I think that's relevant to candidates. And what Darren had mentioned earlier on, yes, they're aware that there's more technology being involved in that process. They're going to be seeking that human touch to trust that actually I'm being looked after. I'm being prioritized. I'm not just a commodity, a number that's being fed through a machine here. And I think the same is likely to be true internally. And I think about trust as a very close cousin to transparency. And I think that pertains to candidates, it pertains to clients, but it also pertains to all of our in-house folks as well, and not just recruiters, but back office staff and the connection thereof of the whole life cycle and the whole ecosystem there. And that's where I think the technology leaders, technology decisions need to be really well thought out and informed. These systems need to connect together so that our recruiters and our humans can add the most value in a human way, but do it with the transparency of all of this information. And I think that ultimately our people are going to have to become good at prioritizing, and they're going to have to be good at focus, because there's just going to be more data, less admin. You can't hide behind admin anymore. So it's going to be time to be focused on what really matters, prioritize ruthlessly. And I think that for certainly for our clients at Conquest, like a big part of our contribution here is just transparency on their remuneration, and how they are paid is not going to fundamentally change, but the inputs are going to change. And if you don't give folks transparency and understanding as to how that works, they're going to be distracted. They're not going to have trust. And we need to just acknowledge that people come to work for a reason. One of those reasons in recruitment in particular is to get paid, and they're going to want to have that trust. That leads to that leans on transparency, and that's where the whole feedback loop needs to be cohesive and well pulled together. So I'm sure that's something you talk to your clients about as well from a tech stack perspective. Like the days of having disparate sources of data, I think those days are gone. People are going to need to have various elements of their tech stack, but they're going to need to feed into some sort of system of record where they can access everything that they need in a clean, cohesive manner, so that they can prioritize accordingly and then execute ruthlessly.
I think one of the things that you said was about there's just so much data. And it's like all of the products that are here today, and all of everything that you do. Think of all the data points that flow in and out of everything. It's so much, and that is just one section. That's just your product alone. Like think of what, as a 360 recruiter, there's so many bits of data, and actually, it's probably all a bit much. Like if we look at like Bullhorn Analytics that can report on every single thing possible, like. I often see that there's so much in there, no one knows what to do with it all, because it's just tallying up more and more information, and it's kind of unnecessary noise. So I think there's going to be a bit of a refocus on not necessarily what KPIs do we need, but actually what data points do we need to use as a business. We need to look at what outreach campaign was successful and why. How many of our spec CVs actually went to a job? How many website applications actually converted? How many of our recruiters hit our target for that reason? And like how many candidates or ever had a positive update? Like there's so many different elements, but like, how do you measure this? How does it all bring in? And I think the agencies that focus on, again, quality and maybe doing a bit less are going to be the ones that kind of can clearly see the improvements and the changes. So very interesting. Thank you, Carl. Gabe, same question to you. How do you see like the role of recruiters shifting this year?
I think we're at a point, and everyone will agree with me on this. This isn't so, out of the ordinary, but I think that right now, tech is the dumbest it'll ever be, right? It'll only get better from here. And within 2026, we already see it now, but tech will be able to craft a JD, shortlist, enhance or screen, source, match, outreach, meaning it could do all of that. So what are agencies charging for in 2026? I think this is that question of what is the role of a recruiter is going to be an existential question for recruitment agencies. And I think that's why I'm from the States. We call them recruiters. In England, they're adamant about it. It has to be called a consultant, right? You guys probably know this, right? I think that's what we're going to be shifting to. We're going to be shifting to consultants and maybe even, dare I say, risk managers. I think that we're not looking for people to just provide me with effort because the tech is getting there, and then that kind of switches what a recruitment agency can do. It's going to be the expertise that the consultant has. And I think that the role of the recruiter is not only going to be able to bring a CV to the table. I think it's going to be able to ask a question, to answer a question that the client might ask, like, do I even need a hire for this? Should this be perm or should this be contract? And that's why if you want me to take a really crazy extreme kind of prediction for 2026, I think that the whole kind of, I guess it would call the cost structure of a recruitment agency is going to change from more of a contingency model where they're taking maybe a percentage for effort to more of a retainer model where they're consulting. They're the people that are inside, that are like kind of in-house, but outsourced because they're the experts. And I think in a time where there's so much uncertainty and no one knows how to hire in an era of AI, they want to come to a recruitment agency and they're expecting the recruitment agency to run a network of individuals that they trust, that they can vouch for, that they're in touch with. And that starts and ends with having, like at the very bare and bones, a network or a system of records that they're constantly engaging and that they're keeping track of. And when you have something like that, then you can provide that, I guess, confidence to those clients.
And I think what the reality of it is those clients who the recruiters are working with don't have access to the tools and the products that we've got. So, and if we think back to what we said, Darren and I said a few minutes ago about the volume, like if you think recruiters have got a lot of volume, how many job applications are big companies getting? I dread to think. So actually the way that recruiters are having the conversations with the clients about how to bring all of this on is going to be really like crucial to move it along. And like I see the role of the recruiter kind of in a slightly different way. I think you've kind of spoken about the high value consulting, and we've got other clients who are focusing on hiring graduates and with no experience. And what they're saying to us is, Holly, can you produce a list of 1,000 candidates in this field for our new graduates to call? And what we're doing is saying, right, fine, speak to these people who literally haven't been spoken to for 2 or 3 years by anybody. So we're not treading on toes. And that's who they call. And they don't get given a LinkedIn license. They don't get access to job boards. The role of the recruiters in these businesses is to harness the data and just call through all of that, log notes. And if they get a lead out of it, great. They log it on the system. They pass it over to someone slightly more experienced. But then we're getting them in the habit from day one of their new role in the company to pick up the phone, make calls at the right time, and really kind of manage a bit of the volume where someone else focuses on the real like high value face-to-face stuff. So very interesting times ahead, I'm sure. So thank you for all your insights. So really interesting to see how we all have those approaches on candidates, clients, and recruiters. So I want to open up the conversation to you all now. We'll just have a really open conversation for 5 minutes. How, from what you've seen for the first few weeks of January and the first week of February, how does 2026 compare to the last few years we've had in recruitment? Like, any of you, fire away. How does 2026 feel in comparison to the last few years?
I'll go, Holly. So I think it certainly seems a lot more positive, that's for sure. But one of the things I wanted to add, it actually goes back a little bit to probably the last question that you asked Gabe, and I absolutely agree with Gabe and everything that he said, because it was almost carbon copy of some of the stuff that I was going to talk about. And I think there's two things we need to look at. And I think that the historic way of recruitment working, where you get a job specification, you send a CV, you fill a job, right? Potentially you go through the process, but that was essentially the old school way of doing recruitment. Way back when I was faxing CVs, that's how we did it. Now, what I think now is that the best recruitment businesses, they don't just fill vacancies, they solve problems for businesses. So those consultants that can truly go into an organization, look at where the organization might be failing within their given subject, and make suggestions on the types of hires that they need to make to solve the business issues that those clients have got, they are the ones that will inevitably be significantly better in 2026. And the reason for that is because we know that job volume is low, right? We know that job is increasing. We're seeing an increase in the number of open vacancies. But these guys, these really good consultants that work in that manner, have the ability to create job roles within their customer base, within their customers. If they can identify where there's issue, let's say, to go back to probably my world, which is sales, and they're looking at their target over the next 12 months. And you're sitting there with a CRO of a recruitment or with a COO of a business and going, right, you've got a real shortfall here with the staff that you've got, the lead generation that you've got to be able to fill that target. I suggest that you probably need to start filling the bucket at the top end, and then you start to ramp the sales team in accordance to, right? So maybe you need to start looking at how you can drive demand gen, and that could be marketing hires, that could be SDR hires, but actually understanding what the business's objectives are and where they want to get to enables you to actually create roles that even perhaps they haven't gone out to market with just yet. And I think that is going to be the biggest shift. That is going to be the biggest shift, where roles are low, and it's going to have to take a lot of education for a lot of recruitment consultants that historically have made money by just taking a job specification, going through, finding the candidates that they've already got on the database, and then sending those candidates to that customer, and then going through the first interview process, second interview, probably with other consultants already working it from other businesses. This will definitely set them apart. So I generally feel that is the shift that's got to happen almost. Sorry,
I'd love to ask on that. No, I'd love to ask on that, actually, how you think maybe the recruiters or the consultants themselves can upskill to be able to provide that. Because like you said, historically, it was a lot about just volume. How can a recruiter today upskill themselves to be a consultant to a business on their problems?
Be inquisitive. I think you can almost upskill yourself. I think if you're inquisitive and you ask the right questions to the right people, and it goes back, I mean, let's put ourselves into our world, right? Before you demo any product, or you go out and see any customer, you want to spend an hour with them, getting to know the pain points, understanding what the problem is, understanding how you could possibly fix it. And then you go into the process of finding a solution for that problem with the products that we have, right? It's not just a case of jumping on a call and showing products and then getting off the call and going, are you going to buy it? You might not be solving the issues that they've got. So in the same way, I think, you need to go so deeply into the discovery phase, not be afraid to ask a question after a question after a question, that you end up with that information. You've got to be inquisitive, but you've also got to be confident enough to do it. It still amazes me how many people would ask a question, take the answer, not go back in again for the next question, and not go back for the third question, because that's when you truly get under the hood of the pain, is if you keep diving deeply. And if you're doing that with hiring managers, with CROs, with CEOs, with whoever, you are going to unearth roles that just don't exist yet. And I think that, like I say, that is the shift. But to your point, Gabe, sorry, to your question, yeah, it's got to be a confidence layer. I think it will be probably slightly more mature recruiters that can take this on and deal with it a little bit more quickly. But I think that's the route they've got to go down, is just be inquisitive, be inquisitive, be inquisitive. And you can almost train yourself in that way.
I think it comes back to the data as well. Like with your clients, when they're hiring, that in September, they always hire 25 Java developers to get ready for Black Friday and Christmas, for example. So we should use the retrospective data that we've seen, and potentially even their competitor data and salary insights to drive those conversations. And I think we sometimes focus so much in our industry on KPIs and what we've done and what's happened and how many placements we've made. Think how much data we've actually got on all, like Carl was saying, on all of these clients. Like, we should harness this and actually, like, I remember someone said to me once, they said, if I set up a recruitment agency, they said the first hire I would make is a data analyst. And I thought, gosh, that's extreme. But do you know what? I kind of get it now, because there is so much data and we need to use this. And we need to think about how we can harness it. Interesting. Any other insights on what we think like 2026 has been or felt like compared to last few years?
I think I wanted to just sort of link on to Darren's point and your own points there, Holly, to be honest with you, because obviously there's to get to the point where you're going to have these really valuable discovery calls, you've obviously got to have won the confidence of the client. So we're talking about when you've got the job, but you've got to get the job, right? And that's the challenge that a lot of recruiters have had after the post-COVID boom, where they've now got to go back to being 360-degree recruiters and do actual business development. And I think it does come down to that maturity, right? And it is tough. We all know BD is tough, right? But if you're doing the right way, you can make it easier for yourself. And what you're talking about there is absolutely right. You've got to give these people a reason to actually want to talk to you. And it's all around strategic market intelligence, right? It is about, rather than just just finding people. It's actually about providing data, using the data that you probably actually already have. Salary benchmarking, competitor trends, heat mapping, acts as a strategic consultant. Again, maybe a little bit cliche, but I think it's really, really important. And if they can take that data away and use it in their boardrooms to define their hiring strategy, then you then do become a valid partner, and you get to have those conversations that Darren was talking about there and really dig into the requirements. So really, really key.
It's quite interesting we say this about kind of like understanding the client. Like for those of you know me who know I'm not great in sales, but I love a chit chat, and my background has never been sales. And we were on a call with a cold prospect of the day. They messaged us, I think, and they said we need some help with Bullhorn. And I was like, right, okay, I'll go on. I'll lead the call. And I was asking the normal questions that I do. And he turned around and he said, sorry, Holly, I'm going to have to stop you. Why aren't you asking me any questions about how we use Bullhorn? And I said, great question. I said, well, I don't need to know that because that's my job. I go in and find out how you use Bullhorn. What I need to know is that you're a client who aligns with what I would like for our clients to be. Because if you turn around to me and say, we just need to improve our data to make more money or whatever, I don't know if that's necessarily what we want. We want someone who really can give us the opportunity and can believe in us to kind of work and actually consult. So I explained it to him and said, this is why I ask you these questions, because I want to make sure we align. I want to make sure you have the right goals as a company. I want to make sure you're happy to actually invest in what we're going to deliver. And I said all of that, and I wasn't sure how he was going to respond because I was asking some quite deep questions about the running of their business. And he was like, oh no, I get it. That makes total sense. And we won the project. So taking that time to answer the deep, meaningful, bigger picture ideas, I think goes a really, really long way. So all about the questions we ask by the sounds of it. And Ben, I'm going to come to you because we've had a question, and then we're going to go round and cover off in about 1 minute all of our predictions. But Ben, we've had a question, and I think you'll be the perfect person to answer this. There is a stirring desire in 2026 for society to move back to a more analog approach in the face of AI and new tech. In a sector that is centered around person to person, how can we find the balance between time saving and productivity boosting without losing the personal touch? So that was from Maximilian. So within AI, productivity, how can we make sure we're still having that personal touch?
What a question.
Great question. It was actually just going to be very close to one of the points I was going to make is that I think we're going to this year might be a bit of a watershed year for the haves and have-nots in terms of AI. The people that have set themselves up or at least gone down the road on trying to enable AI within their organization, those that haven't yet, AI will reach a point at which it is way better than it is now, right? Like we're essentially along the exponential curve of how quickly this stuff is improving. And if you haven't got to a stage, at least in your business, where you've tried, you've failed, you at least have some infrastructure in place to be able to roll something like this out quickly and make use of it. Once that switch happens and it does get to a point where it's incredibly good, like the people who have gone through that pain will just pull ahead very quickly, and then everybody else will be playing catch up. But that shift will happen very quickly, and that's what we're seeing a lot of people now. And we talked about it maybe at the beginning of last year, where people were like, oh, I'm scared that I'm not getting on the AI train fast enough, and like, what am I doing with it? And like, that's kind of how everyone feels. Like everyone kind of is like a bit scared that they're going to get left behind, and that's okay, because it will probably happen to some people at some point. It's just that you have to balance the risk of not doing it against the benefits of actually going through it, and you will learn some stuff along the way. And to answer your question, Max, sorry, in a long-winded way, what do clients want from recruiters? They want to be able to find, they don't necessarily need recruiters, right? If you just think about what they actually want, they want the best candidates as quickly as possible. So if you just think about that, and how do you tell and show people that all the time, because you need to be visible, as someone said earlier, but also have the ability to go and dig into the best candidates as quickly as possible and service their opportunities as quickly as possible, then you probably think, even though candidates are everywhere right now, right? What I said earlier about candidate management, community management, think of that as a way to nurture your best candidates, not just be like, oh, I've got a role, I'm going to post it live to everybody. I've got a role and I don't need to post it because I've got a list of 40 candidates that we're close to right now because they show up to our events every week. How can I put them straight in? And that's why clients will come to you, and that's why clients will value you, because AI will probably munch up the rest of the hard-working parts of the job. The events and the in-person stuff is still super important, because ultimately, and this came from a SaaS podcast probably like a month ago, someone was saying that, yeah, AI will do a lot of the parts of jobs like proposal writing, RFPs, like all the parts we don't like doing. But there will still need to be someone that is the salesperson, because the CTO, the CEO, whoever it is that's buying it, is putting their job on the line, their name on the line for X number of revenue to make this happen. And when something goes wrong at 2:00 in the morning on a Sunday night, they want someone to pick up the phone to and shout at, or to blame, or to be beholden to it. So like, and that's in a business to business sense. But if you think about it, candidates are just B2C. Like, this is the biggest decision of their life, is moving jobs, because it's all of their livelihood is tied up in moving that role. So like, ultimately playing more FaceTime with candidates means that you'll build more trust with them and ultimately hopefully get the best people through, because you are the key salesperson for their life, essentially.
Interesting. Carl, I've got a quick curveball question for you before we come for our final question. Do you see any recruitment agencies actually like incentivizing via commission to make sure recruiters are getting face-to-face time with either candidates or clients?
Great question.
No, is the short answer. We have seen, what I will say is that there is but it's only very minor. There is, over the last few years, in addition to automation and everything else, we've seen the emergence of alternative business models. And this is now over the last 5 to 10 years, really, of, 360 is no longer a thing. We're in roles of speciality. And people have started to incentivize some of those specialist roles slightly differently. And the nearest thing to what you're asking for is probably like top of funnel stuff. So, appointment setting, it might be like an SDR type of role. And I think one of the key things that folks are starting to realize is the fundamental of it. It can't just be connected to an invoiceable event if you can't influence that. Has started to filter its way through. So people are focused on the behaviors that matter, the objective measure of success, and how do we incentivize against that. But in the context of this conversation and everything else we've just talked about, and back to the point that I made right at the very beginning, transparency is just so important throughout, every interaction that we have now, because that's what leads to trust. And I think trust is kind of like the biggest thing that we're looking for. I'm thinking about Maximilian's unreal question that he just asked a few minutes ago. I think that he's kind of right. And I feel that, and maybe it's an age thing, I'm in my 40s now. Maybe I'm, a little bit adverse to too much technological change, that I too am yearning for that kind of human touch, if you will. And that ties to the in-person events that Ben's talking about and all that type of thing. So I feel like there's going to be a big balance, and it's going to shift, as in there's too much reliance on technology, or there has been in recent times. It's not going to be less tech. It's just going to be smarter application thereof. And the human skill set, the soft skill set, is going to become even more important for us all.
Interesting.
Just by the way, not that anyone asked me, but on the compensation side, what I am seeing, and I wonder, Carl, if you're seeing this too, I am seeing that there's a comp change of prioritizing your internal network as opposed to external. So that trust that we're talking about is saying, if you could make this placement from your existing database, as opposed to making it cold outreach on LinkedIn, Indeed, whatever it may be, that they give separate comp. I wonder if you're seeing that as well, because I'm seeing that a lot to help prioritize relationships as opposed to mass outreach.
Have we seen it? Yes. Are we seeing it a lot? No. It kind of just reminds me, like the recruitment industry and its compensation practices just lags the SaaS industry. And SaaS have been doing this for a long time. Self-gen versus MQLs, or whatever it may be. But I do think that there's definitely this trend, primarily in the States, and I'd like to see it more in the UK, of just being smarter with your margin protection and understanding what should we actually be rewarding with commission here, and are there different treatments. And I think that if you have clients that are doing that, I definitely think that's the right way to approach it.
Wow, interesting. I love this conversation. And if I was running a recruitment agency, I would 100% incentivize everybody on making sure their data was good throughout the process. And then they'd get an extra bit of bonus if they met the candidate and the client as well. But
I have an objective measure, though, in order to do that, Holly. That's the difficulty there. I think I've seen lots of people that have tried that, like a data hygiene bonus or, whatever. And anytime I hear it, I'm like, what's the objective definition? Can't give one, or it's really hard. If anyone listening here though, or any one of our collective clients have managed to do that and objectively define it, I'd love to hear how they managed to do that. That's something that Conquest would love to power, but until now, it's a little bit loose.
Well, you're going to get a WhatsApp from me in a few minutes, Carl, with some ideas. So there we go.
I'm glad I came.
Okay. So I'm going to come around to you all. I will go first. I want one sentence. What are our overall predictions in 2026? My overall prediction is going to be that the market is going to completely flip in the autumn, and that it's going to become really, really, really jobs heavy, and the candidate pools are going to start drying up. So don't forget your BD. Darren, over to you.
I think probably leaning on what I said earlier, I don't think filling jobs is enough. Okay, that's what gets you paid, but I don't think that is enough. And I think the big prediction is how recruiters can survive in a market that is really challenging. And it goes back to what I said, it's be inquisitive, it is understand your clients more, it is get involved in, high level discussions which shape business change. Because that's essentially what recruiters provide, right? Business change. For everybody that you bring into an organization, it's changing the way that business operates, unless you're replacing like for like. So that's my prediction. Might be a bit out there.
No, I love it. That's why we're doing this, right? We'll see if you're right in November. Gabe, over to you.
Okay, these are a couple. It's rapid fire, but we're going to see if I'm right. One, I think that proportionally, the smaller and agile recruitment agencies will beat the public ones, again, proportionately. Yep. Second, very random, I think that LinkedIn will lose a lot of market share to staffing agency, specifically to Juicebox, just an opinion. Three, I think that data will continue to be the number one reason why AI fails. It's already, but it'll continue. And the last thing is I do think that recruitment agencies will shift their compensation structure. That's it. We'll see if I'm right.
Wow. Love it. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to have to listen back to that to digest it all. But yeah, 4 very good points. Ben, over to you.
Your prediction really threw me at the beginning, actually. I was like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. I think that we might see productivity. So the productivity of one person being of 2 or 3 people being done by one person by the end of this year, just based on some of the advancements that are going on. Yeah,
no, I genuinely really think the market's going to flip, because I think in-house companies and TA are going to really, really, really struggle, because there's such a volume of people. So what's going to happen is they're going to outsource it all to us. All the good candidates are going to go, and then we're going to have then an influx of jobs. Time will tell. Rob, over to you. What was your prediction for 2026?
Yeah, some crossover with some other people's, but I genuinely think that the most successful agencies in 26 will move from traditional being a broker to being like a high-tech consultancy, move away from just finding people a job to building a long-term talent solution. And I think that ties into some of the things that Gabe said as well. So I think that's going to include looking at new revenue and business models. So, recruitment as a service, embedded models, for example. A lot of people have been very successful with that. And alongside that becomes performance-linked fees in the way that you comp people. So, yeah, that's where I see it going.
And regarding compensation, Carl, over to you. What's your key prediction for 2026?
I too think that there will be a big shift in the market, probably not until the second half of the year, but with a little bit of a caveat that I think we are still going to rely on the underlying fundamentals. We need a good macro environment. I think that we may see the start of an AI bubble. It might not be this year, but I think that it is inevitably coming. But I don't think that's the end of AI. I think it's just the end of the sieve, the end of the filter of where it actually has the true benefit. But I think the main thing that I'm expecting here is a shift in how humans interact with one another, so that it's actually way more. Less time on admin and all of the boring tasks, way more time speaking to people, building relationships, and building the word that I've used 40,000 times in the last 45 minutes, trust.
Love that. Trust. Well, look, what we're going to do is we're going to come back in November or December, and we're going to maybe watch some of this back and go through our predictions and see how right or wrong we are. But thank you so much for joining. Now, as a little bonus, I don't know if you've seen, we are hosting absolutely free bullhorn training. I'm going to put the link in the chat. Now, we've got 5 sessions over 5 weeks. And guess what? We're also going to have a representative from all 5 of these products showing you how their product can support you, can support your team, give you better oversights, get better data, whatever that is within the training as well. I am probably absolutely mad for giving this all away for free, but I really want to show so many recruiters just how they can make some of this a reality, how they can use their tech, how they can use their data, how they can be incentivized properly to really drive what we know is going to be a fantastic year. So that link is in the chat. We would love for you to join us. And thank you so much, everybody. I know you're all super, super busy, but this has been a really, really interesting chat. I've had so many takeaways, some great questions, and let's hope that some of our predictions are right for this year and we will have a great year. So thank you very much. It was lovely to speak to you all, and thank you so much for joining, everybody. Bye.
Thanks. Good to
Thank
see
you
you
so
all.
much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.